Pairs very well with light red wines, poultry, eggs, and game meats. So like venison would be a great choice to do with these. So this is the beautiful Chanterelle. If you're thinking about getting into foraging mushrooms, this is a great one to start with because it's pretty easy to identify. Hey guys, this is Prepping with Sarge here for LT Wright Knives, and today we're going to talk about the Chanterelle mushroom. Stay with me now. All right, so we've got a couple chanterelles here that we can look at. There's one here and there's one here. This one here is kind of older and played out, so I'm not sure. That probably wouldn't eat that one, but let's take a look at it. We might be able to use it for educational purposes. All right, so a couple things to be looking for. This is definitely a little bit played out, the browning around the edges. I wouldn't eat this one, but I think we can use it for our educational purposes here. So when you're trying to identify them, they're typically going to be either yellow or orange. Now there are a couple of lookalikes we will talk about in just a minute, but the caps should look like wavy like that, and often have like a funnel shape, right? So they invert, as opposed to some mushrooms that might make like a rounded cap. Okay, they're typically 2 to 6 inches wide. This can vary though. I've definitely seen them smaller than that. Let's turn this over and take a look at the bottom side. Okay, now instead of true gills, chanterelles have blunt forked ridges. Sometimes they're called false gills, although some snobbish people in the foraging community will yell at you if you use that terminology. They will typically run all the way down the stem, and they're shallow. I don't know if you can see, but you actually can, in some cases, you could rub it off with a fingernail. They look more like folds or ridges or veins than traditional gills of a mushroom. There you go, there's a pretty good close-up there. All right, the stem itself should be solid, not hollow. So let's take a look. Break it open. There we go. Definitely solid. And I want to show you a little trick here that that's solid. I know that looked like it was hollowed. It's just because of the way that it broke open. A little trick here that's sometimes not mentioned in foraging guides, but it should be able to like peel like string cheese like that. Okay. The stem, the outside of the stem should be basically the same color as the cap. It can be slightly less vibrant. Now, some foraging books will say that they have a fruity smell. I typically can pick up those apricot aromas with these, but when I've done videos about these before, I've had people tell me that theirs have no smell, so maybe don't count on that as your primary way to identify. They do have somewhat of an apricot taste to me. Let's talk about habitat. So a lot of foraging books will say that you find them under oaks. I will tell you that I found them in areas where there is no oaks, but what I think is happening there, like this section here where I've got this little patch that seems to grow year after year, I know for a fact that about 50 feet away from here, there was an oak tree that used to grow, and it got diseased and got cut down. So maybe don't always think about that like you're looking for a live oak. It's possible that you'll find them in areas where there's oaks not growing because maybe there was an oak that used to grow there. Some people have also said that they found them near pines, birches, and beech trees as well. They tend to grow on the soil, not on the wood, which is one of the big factors too when you're looking at distinguishing them from one of their lookalikes, the jack-o'-lanterns. So you're going to find them literally in the soil, like this guy over here, which is actually still pretty healthy, and that one's edible. You're typically going to find them in late spring, early summer, and after a rainfall. Let's go ahead and take a look at this other one here. Okay, this one's definitely a little bit healthier, and you can see the color is a little bit lighter. This is, sometimes people call these golden. There's multiple different types of chanterelles, so this might be a golden chanterelle, I believe. Let's talk a little bit about the lookalikes. So the jack-o'-lantern, as I mentioned before, tends to be brighter orange. It has true gills, unlike these false gills, which I'm showing you here. The jack-o'-lantern also grows in clusters on wood, typically on the tree stumps or buried roots. There's no fruity smell, and sometimes at nighttime, the jack-o'-lanterns will give a slight glow. So they're actually pretty cool. The other one is the false chanterelle, which some people have said are edible and other people have said it's given them GI issues. I don't mess around with those. The false chanterelles tend to be a deeper orange color, and they also will have true gills, unlike these false gills or ridges or veins or whatever you want to call those there. If you're, as with all things foraging, if you're not sure, do not take a chance, right? So for me, it's pretty easy to tell the difference between a chanterelle and a jack-o'-lantern. And once you turn it upside down, it's pretty easy to determine a chanterelle versus a false chanterelle. But if you're not sure, don't take a chance. Chanterelles also tend to give off a white to pale yellow spore print if you're into taking spore prints. So where do they grow, you ask? Well, they grow in many parts of the world. They're pretty widely distributed across the United States. Maybe not so much in desert areas as far as I know, but they grow in most other areas of the United States, in the Northeast, in the Northwest, definitely in the Southeast where I'm living. They also tend to grow in Europe, Asia, parts of Africa, and Australia. So it's pretty widely distributed across the globe. They tend to prefer acidic soil and well-drained soil. So after a rain, if you've got acidic soil, you live near some pine trees or oak trees, why not take a look? Early spring, throughout the summer. If I said late summer before, I do sometimes see them up until even August. I think I've seen them here before. So how do you cook them? Well, in a survival situation, you could technically eat these raw. They are not going to taste as good as if you cook them. If you cook them, and one of the best ways to cook them, honestly, is with some butter or oil and a little bit of garlic salt. They tend to have like a nutty, slightly apricot flavor for me. And you can eat them spread on toast. You can put them in a white creamy sauce on pasta. You can put them in soups. You can have them with eggs. You can basically serve them. You could put them in dumplings and cook them like that. You can dehydrate these if you've got a dehydrator, or if you want to do them low and slow in the oven, and then rehydrate them later on when you want to use them. So they're a great foraging crop for homesteaders and long-term survival. Dehydrate them, store them in a Mylar bag in a cool, dry place away from sunlight. Pairs very well with light red wines, poultry, eggs, and game meats. So like venison would be a great choice to do with these. So this is the beautiful chanterelle. If you're thinking about getting into foraging mushrooms, this is a great one to start with because it's pretty easy to identify. All right, folks, I hope you found that helpful. Don't forget to hit that subscribe button if you're not already subscribed. Smash that like and leave a comment down below. Let me know, do you forage for chanterelle mushrooms? This is Prepping with Sarge for LT Wright Knives. Stay sharp, folks.
Well, I've been told my attitude could use changing, and my lifestyle could use some